everybody, welcome back to My Classic Fords. You're back with Gordon Best. I'm working on my Jaguar project. As you see, we got her cut. And I say we all the time. It's only me. Okay, so we got to cut off. Rookie mistake. I didn't cover the windshield. I didn't cover the dash. Super easy to do. Just grab yourself some cardboard, a fire blanket. Why I didn't, I guess I was just raring to go, ambitious. So the good part of this is when I do build the car, this windshield's coming out. We have some window repair under here. Likely, I can probably get a new piece of glass relatively cheap. There isn't anything wrong with this one. I checked it over. You know, I don't feel any pits on it. But it does have a lot of like road rash on it. I mean, it's the original window. I gotta take it out anyway. I gotta get a new seal anyway. Maybe I'll just buy a new windshield. I don't know. I haven't priced one out. Either way, make sure you cover up your stuff. Bonehead move on my part. The dash, I'm not so concerned about. Believe it or not, it's a luxury plywood dash. Jaguar used real wood. Yes, it's actually 1/2-inch plywood. So what I was thinking was the dash is messed up anyway. The dash pad is no good. If I could buy a new dash pad, I think I will. I think I'll go to a cabinet shop and get a nice piece of 1/2-inch plywood, real wood, whatever, and make a new dash for it. This one's all swelled up because of water and moisture getting behind it. But either way, there was no sense to destroy it. I should have covered it up, which I will do now, just to protect what I have. Another thing I wanted to mention, guy gave me this today. I was thrilled. It's a little welding helmet for my young fella, so I want to give him a big thanks. Thanks a lot. So what we're going to do tonight, I'm going to try to prep the back of this car to weld back together. So we need to figure out what we're doing with this mess. All this portion of the floor's got to go. We'll take that off. I don't know how far I'll get tonight, but we'll see. Let's get at it. Okay, so this is what I think I'm going to do. And you know, this is my first time customizing a car this heavily, you know, like, I do a lot of fabrication work, do a lot of welding, so just bear with me here. I think I'm going about it not too bad, but I guess we'll see when it's, you know, somewhat back together. What I think in my mind, I'm picturing this cut off flat, so it'll butt back up to the car. The problem is, this here is actually my subframe, which is fine. This is where the actual mount is under here. And this is all still very much intact. So I left it, but now I need to figure out how to graft it into the car. So I thought at first maybe I would notch out the pillar, but now I think I'm going to leave the pillar alone. And this here, what I'm looking at, is this inside tub of the sill. It's almost like a little piece of channel that's welded in between the frame and the floor, and then the sill kind of wraps on over here. What I'm thinking is I'm going to get rid of all this. So I'm going to cut this off just like this. Right here is actually the inside of the floor, so I know that if I simply cut this out right along here, this will actually slide into the floor of the car. So I can leave this in the, we'll say, the original location. Right or wrong, that's what's going to happen. I'm going to put a string on it. I'm going to stretch a string right across that, and then I'm going to mark the string. That way I know it's a nice straight line. All right. Okay, now that my string's on here, I can kind of look to see how straight my floor is cut. And I'm just going to check with a tape measure off of here. If this is like an inch, that should be an inch. And again, all this stuff that I'm doing here with the string, my thought process is the straighter I cut it, the straighter it should go back together. So we got roughly about 1 1/8 inches. On this side I got 1 1/4 inches. So I know I need to hold that string in about 1/8 on that side. And then I'm going to guess at 1/8. So I'm just going to push that in 1/8. And I'm going to mark it. Okay. Now I know that that is going to be a really decent straight cut. So I know when I cut that off and that off, at least I know the back of that car is as square as I can make it. I won't have any large gaps. You don't want to cut it off 1 inch short on this side and the right length on that side. You might not be able to trim it and make it work. You'd have a 1 inch gap, you have to fill it in. So I'm trying to take a little more time to make it right, to make it easier on the other end. Again, right or wrong, I guess we'll find out. That's pretty neat, you know, look at how good that is inside, up high, you know, that's still really good. That's metal on metal, you know, they literally just put one piece on top of the other, and man, in between, it's not even rusty in there. It's pretty much the only spot that it's rusty is right where everything was laying on top of this joint. So the metal on metal part is actually still quite intact, which is kind of shocking. But the actual sheet metal that's not layered is rotted out. Huh. Go figure. Okay, so now that I got this cut off, my plan is still to put a piece of plate here, and that will flush all that up and make it flat, and then I can weld it to that, and that'll make it flat. This piece is now staying. That piece will go right inside the car. That piece will go right under the car. And what I'm thinking is I can build my floor kind of around it. So I think that's really all I need to do here. I can put my plate here, weld it on. This here fender well, this has to be fixed. It's a little bit rough here. But I'm going to do my plate first. I'll repair that later when the wheel's off again. Other than that, we'll do the other side, I guess. Okay, so what I've done, this frame, it's a little heavier sheet metal. I keep calling it a frame, but it's like your substructure of the car. This piece is still really sturdy, still really good metal. So I'm going to leave it. My mount's already hooked to it. Everything's good. This little intricate piece of the floor is still good. I want to keep it. Then I can just put a flat pan in and just make life so much easier. What I want to do now that I've got that done, you can see the mount on that other side, or I hope you can. I'll bring the camera over later and give you a better view. I want to plate this in. Basically like this. I want to weld a plate in. This is not the plate I'm using. This is just a piece of 1/4 inch plate that I had. But I want to put that on there. Then I can see where I need to grind it to make that flat. Once that's flat, and I got it on both sides, I'm going to call this half done. So this part will be ready to go back on. What I'm thinking is 2 flat surfaces, gonna make it easy. Once we get these cleaned up, I have a piece of sheet metal. I'm gonna use 14 gauge here. The reason being is all this bent sheet metal here makes it very strong. I'm gonna put a heavier piece in here and weld it solid. Underneath the pillar, we're gonna have to modify it. We're gonna have to cut that much of the pillar flat. So we're gonna cut into that pillar. So I'm gonna build it back up, go right down to the sill with heavy sheet metal, and that's gonna box that back in and make it very strong. Once this car is together, then I'm gonna look at running, instead of the sill, I'm looking at running like a little square tube right from the front to the back to really strengthen up the whole car. I think that would be a wise choice. Just in my opinion, that's what I think, and that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm just going to put this on here now, and then I can see roughly where it needs to be ground to make it as flat as I can. Alright, so after a little bit of grinding, what I've done is I've just tried to eye it up and make this whole surface as flat as I can make it. Like I said, we're going to repair this piece and this piece later on. I'm just interested in getting it tied back together. So we're going to put a plate here, and this is going to tie this all back together and make it nice and strong. Then we'll have lots, once this is done, we'll have lots to build a panel here and tie it to it. And I think we want to change these fenders a little bit anyway, so I don't want to get too crazy with doing anything with that. Alright, so the next step will be to lay a piece of paper on here, we'll trace it out, and then we'll cut a piece out and tack it on. Alright, so this is the same piece of brisket board from last night. I'm thinking we'll just put it on as best as I can. Let's go with that straight side. I want my plate to come down to the lip, down to here. And this is what I was hoping for. Hoping this would do this. Okay. That's just going to give me a rough pattern to go by. Cut it out big first. Now these lines don't have to be perfect because they're just a guideline right now. I think that looks about like that. Yeah, that just came straight over. Something like that. So, we'll cut that out extra large, try it back on, and then trim it up a little bit closer. Alright, so it's always easier to cut paper versus steel. So that's why I cut this out first. This is a rough shape. We just want to make sure this is what we want. So this is now what I'm picturing. We got that. I think that's going to work out pretty good. Well, stick a couple pieces of tape on it. If I I can find the tape, we'll stick a couple pieces of tape on it. Then I'll trim this to make it suit the car, and then we'll go ahead, try it on the other side. It should be just a mirror image. We should be able to just do this. So I should be able to cut out two of them. Bang, bang. Okay, so this is 14 gauge. It is a piece of new metal. It's just outside for a little bit. It got, you know, some rust on it. I won't hurt it none. It's 14 gauge, so it's fairly heavy. I want something fairly rigid here to help kind of tie the structure back in. I know the fellow I worked with told me that if your soapstone isn't sharp enough that you can shave your face with, then it's not sharp enough to use. And what he meant by that, when you're drawing something out, if it looks like this, and it's big and thick, you know, how are you ever going to cut something precise? You want that as fine as you can make it. The finer you can draw it, the finer you can cut it. If you start out, you know, crappy and thick lines, it's not going to get better. Alright, so I got my plate tacked on, and as you can see, that's kind of what I was after. My way of thinking is, this car is cut straight, there's a nice square section here, I'm going to make that one match, and then bang, we'll butt them together. I don't think I'm going to weld this yet. I think I'm just going to leave it for now, just in case I need to modify it. We'll go stick the other side on, and like I said, this half of the car, it's pretty much prepped and ready to go back on. And we'll cut that side. All right, so I got those plates put on. I think they look pretty good. So I don't think I'm gonna weld them yet. I'm just gonna see kind of what I got to work with. But you see my frame piece here is still in nice shape. And my floor here is in great shape. So we're gonna keep that. And this piece here is gonna go in here. Okay, so that's gonna slip right in by the pillar. And then this frame piece should be kind of hovering in here because this floor is lower than that floor. So where this piece was originally is simply right here. So that should kind of slip over the floor, I think, or we're hoping. So that's what I'm up to. As you see, there's a lot of stuff there that's, there's a lot going on right there. What I'm going to do now is, like I said, I got the plates on. I was going to show you this mount. This is like where my subframe comes out from my suspension and hooks to the car. So like I said, I'm glad I'm able to salvage that because that just takes oodles amount of work out. I left this part of the floor because it's all, it's all formed. And now I can just put a flat piece of floor back in. I get really lucky that this is all in that good a shape. I got a couple little spots to address there. And then in behind this plate, we'll get from the back side and the fender. So what I'm up to now we got to cut this big chunk of the floor off. So I think what I'll do is, here's the line, if you remember from the last video, that I marked where the door is. Like the rear door was right here. That's now where the back of the car is coming. So that's why I marked it. So really, I'm thinking now, because that's really only this high, from here to here, that's only going to be from here to here. So we only need to worry about this little section. We'll square that off with this line, which is basically nothing. So we'll just cut that off right there. And I'm thinking that's going to be a little easier than I thought it was going to be, which I'm, obviously happy about that. So I think we can just mow this off and zip right across there, zip right across there. And this big chunk of the floor will be removed. All right, so I got my string line on again. I'm starting to learn I'm a big fan of using a string. So what I done to get that string line, if you guys remember, like I said, that line is where that door gap was. So now I use tape because tape's easy when you put it on. It's a lot easier to eye your tape up and hold it straight. And then I just kind of mark the line after, just so when the tape falls off or I knock the tape off, I still got a line. So I put my tape on, and then I figured out where like my crossover point would be. So my string's got to be down on this line. Okay? So my string's on this line. So this will be cut right like that. My string's here. Same on the other side. So I know that my string's the right height. If it is in fact the right height, it's going to be in the right spot on this radius, which will keep it fairly straight. I'm thinking that's the best way I can do it. Then I'll just put my square on the floor, run it up to the string, make a couple little marks, make a mark on the transmission tunnel, and go right across, and then we'll just cut her off. So you'll see me change out zip cuts a lot. I don't throw these wheels away. They're still good. But for what we're doing right now, we need as much kind of depth as we can get. So that's why I keep the full wheel on. And at the end of the day, it does make it a little safer because you're not trying to jam in where you shouldn't. So I always like to try to keep the full 7-inch wheel on. All right. Okay, so now you see why I put the black line with my marker beside the tape. Because now that I started cutting, of course, the tape's blowing off because the floor is so rusty. Boy, a lot of work cut a car in half. That is for sure. So, that 7-inch zip cut, mowed through that, absolutely perfect. Up around the hump, you've seen how quick it is. There's just a few spots you can't reach. Just like any grinder, it just, it has its drawbacks, but that's what we got Sawzall for. There. All right. Yes, sir. Oh, if the neighbors are home, they're probably thinking I don't know, crazy or something. I'm here talking to myself, hollering, screaming. Look at that. One floor. It's actually hard to believe, yes, we are replacing the floor. There's no question in my mind. I think I'm going to leave the tunnel alone. This is a really nice, double layer tunnel. Double layered right into here. And it's, believe it or not, it's still good. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And a lot of this floor, I don't want to say this too loud, but it's still okay. It's not, we're not using it, but I'm just saying there's a lot of material there. I don't think you fall through it by any means. It's a very well-built car, very heavy. I think the weight on this is 4,500 pounds. So, either way, like I said, we are stripping it, we're getting rid of it. Kind of just wondering, I really don't know if I need another plate on there. Why would I? I mean, I got that plate. If I put a plate there and sandwich two plates together like I originally thought of, it's only going to create a spot where you can't weld anyway. If I take that and weld it to that, why wouldn't that be good enough? Then, like I said, we're going to run some tubing supports in here anyway, probably right inside the sill. We'll probably cut this sill off because it's a little rusty right here. And I'm thinking about putting lag pipes on the car anyway. So I'm thinking about using this big void. I'm thinking about cutting the sill off and basically rolling one to fit in here like this. And then I can put my exhaust right up underneath. I think that would look really cool. All right, I guess I'll clean up the floor a little bit. Okay, I think I'm ready to at least move this half the car up closer. I don't think it's going to just fit right in for a couple different reasons. I think this frame might interfere a little bit. I'm not sure. I'm thinking the best way to find out is just to kind of push it up to it and see what we got to deal with. You know, I don't know if these are exactly right. So, I'm going to try and push her up. Well, I can tell you this much, it's definitely shorter than it was the other day. I can tell you that for sure. I can tell you that. Okay, so at least now I can sort of see what I'm up against. Okay, so now that I pushed up to it, I realized what I gotta trim. So I'm gonna trim a couple things and then we'll try and push it back together. All right, so a little cutting required. Let's try it again. All right, we need to cut a little piece of the floor out because the subframe is hitting the floor, which is fine because the floor is coming out anyway. So I think I'll take a big chunk out of the floor and then I think we'll be pretty close to putting it in place. I think. So what's going on is I've cut this so tight that the sides are rubbing as it's going in the car. So it needs to be trimmed a little bit, but I would rather trim it than have a huge gap. So that's why I keep putting it on, taking it off, is so I can just slowly trim it down and make it fit properly. All right, so this is what's going on. These pieces sticking out like my frame rails, they're very tight going in. So I had to trim them down a little bit, just a little bit at a time. And I cut this section of floor off because now I see where it's going. I cut these two big sections out just so I could line it up. I've got that flushed off and that flushed off. So I'm thinking now it should slide in. How easy that pulls back out. You think it would roll in? It certainly doesn't like to. All right, now we're cooking with gas. Yes, sir. It's nice at the back is on the jack, so you can kind of tip it out and wiggle it in. I'm thinking what has to happen is the middle of the car is actually got to come up. That's what I'm thinking. Now that I see it. Okay, so I got the back locked to kind of where I think it looks proper. Because I'm thinking this bathtub joint should be pretty flat. And I'm thinking the middle of that car is going to come up. That's what I see. And that's the best part about building custom cars. You really can't be wrong. There, I think that looks better. Oh yeah. Yeah, that looks better. What I'm looking at right now, I'm looking at two things. I'm looking at this body line, and I'm also looking at this line here. It should go back to the old sill line. That should be about right, really. Okay, so the back end's back on. As you can see, she's a pretty stubby little Jaguar now. So we're definitely going to have to stretch that front end out, get some proportions back right. It's fit up pretty good. It's definitely going to take a little bit more messing around with before I'm welding it. It was a pretty good guess. I only got about a 1/2 inch gap on the transmission tunnel. Obviously, there's a lot of modifications to make it fit anyway, but I'm pretty happy with the way that lined up. And when you look at the seam, it's hard to see on camera, but it's pretty damn close to lining up. And I was following this here, this lip here, and lined it up with this one. And as you see, like, it's pretty close, right, to being lined up. So I was looking at that. I'm following this body line across here. I'm also following this body line here. It's still going to take a little bit of messing around. I think the back end has to drop about maybe 1/2 inch. The front of the car might have to come up just a little bit. It is a little bit challenging to line it back up, but that's what it's all about. And as you see here, same thing, like, it's lined up pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. We'll do our dimension checks on the next video. I sort of just put it together to see if I could get it back together. So that part's accomplished. Pretty happy with that. I guess I'll try in one of them door pieces, see what it looks like. I don't know what I'm doing with the roof yet. Like, there's a lot happening in here. This might just get zipped off. We might just use the sheet metal. I'm not sure yet. Looking at the Daytona coupe, the front door is actually straight. So I'm thinking I might not bother that. I might just taper the roof from here right down to here. Okay, so I might have a long taper on it. So I might get rid of that roof altogether. I'm not sure. I left it on because it was already there. I've decided that I'm not going to totally try to replicate a Daytona coupe. I'm still going for that look, but I want to keep it similar to a Jag in the front, just so when people see it, they wonder, you know, what kind of Jag is that? You know, and I'm going to tell them it's a DNC8. It's a date night coupe with an 8-cylinder. I don't know if anybody will fall for it, but I'm sure I'll get somebody on it. I'm seeing, you know, lag pipes here. Definitely in the future. Like I said, we need to cut this car off here, slide it forward. It's going to be a cool car, I think. It's going to be a mid-engine car. All right, I'm going to try that door in there and see what it looks like. All right, everybody. I guess at this point, you could almost make it like a Gremlin. If you left it that short a wheelbase, it should be a Jaguar Gremlin. Probably won't do that. I'm still thinking, like I said, we'll stretch it out. As you can see, that door panel that I cut fits right back in. And also, like I said, we're going to have to do a lot more modification with it, but door gap looks pretty good for a rough fit. So we know our pattern worked. All right, guys. Well, I hope you kind of enjoyed what I'm doing. If you like it, just keep coming back. All right, everybody. Like, share, subscribe. That would be fantastic. And thank you so much for watching.